does it seem that home prices are close to fair value, or are there still some excesses that need to be shaken out of the market? And then part two to that is it different in, let's call the expensive homes versus the average home? What do you see in that case?
So, interesting news here. We all know we had a boom in house prices, and they've fallen. It turns out that the increase in house prices, once you've accounted for inflation, was about 85%. This started around 1996. Before that, you can actually go back about 100 years, and you find that there were very little changes in house prices relative to inflation. So there was a strong belief that we were around 1995, 1996 at the equilibrium level. We were at about the right level of house prices, 100 years of evidence of that. There actually was a study in the Netherlands. They went back 300 years. House prices changed basically the same as the rate of inflation. That may surprise some of you, but especially if you have children out there, younger, they'll remember, house prices were zooming my entire adult lifetime. Well, that was from 1996 going onwards. We've had house prices falling. They've fallen back to the levels that are around the beginning of 2003. 2003 is a long way from 1996. If we're going to get back there, they would fall another 30%. So you may say, no, that can't be right. Actually, there's very good data on this. It does differ depending upon which metropolitan area you live in. You're here in Columbus. I assume that you live somewhere in central Ohio area. We didn't have the boom that occurred in many other places, and we're not having the bust that occurred in many other places. So I wouldn't predict that the home values in Columbus are going to fall that much. But I would predict that if you go to many of the other places, especially the Californias, the Floridas, Las Vegas, and so on, they are still relatively high priced compared to this long-term average. So that's, not terribly great news for those people that are thinking about, if I told you that you have an investment that's going to fall 25% in value, well, maybe you should get rid of that real fast. Do economists really believe this? It's interesting. If you look at some real estate economists that relocated around 2006, they all rented. Didn't matter what city they went to, because they believe that if they invested in housing, boy, are they happy. They actually can rent pretty nice places in a lot of California, San Diego, and so on. So they're thinking about getting back in the ownership market. But again, it's a little anecdotal evidence that suggests this is real. What about high versus low? There's good evidence that the boom in house prices was primarily in lower quality, lower priced housing. That actually makes sense when you think about all of the relaxation of down payments, the lowering, the innovative mortgages that allowed you to lower your monthly payments and so on. Who are they appealing to? The relaxation of credit score criteria. They were appealing to lower wealth, lower income households that would be buying lower valued houses. So those things actually increased in price percentage terms more than higher valued houses. And they're also falling faster. That'll make sense to you because where's the foreclosure crisis? Yes, there's a few high valued homes that are mixed in there, but a lot of these things are in lower valued homes. They could be homes that are in inner city areas. They could be the surrounding suburban, sort of modest homes that were starter homes. And their prices are falling relatively rapidly. All of this is moving back towards 1996 levels, so I do think we've got some more adjustments to make.
Could I just add one comment? We're major investors in mortgage-backed securities at J.P. Morgan, and as I was telling Don before we started the panel, it's something that we watch very closely, so I'm extremely interested in what he had to say, and I think we would agree. When we look at the lower end, those prices were hit first. We still think that even the lower end home has maybe another 10%, and we're kind of putting that metric in some of our stress testing that we're doing. When we look at the higher end, kind of $1 million and higher type priced home in maybe the center of the country, and maybe you call that $1.75 million on the coasts, those prime mortgages have kind of lagged this a bit. And because of unemployment and tax increases on wealthy, we think there could be another 15 to 20% decline in the higher end homes. So, we're pricing more home decline into our stress testing metrics as we invest in the mortgage market.
Just one other comment is, as economists think about prices, we always think about it relative to inflation. So there's two ways that prices can fall when you're thinking about measuring it relative to inflation. One is they actually fall, so you have a $200,000 house that becomes a $150,000 house. The other is your house stays at $200,000 for a long number of years, but inflation is taking off. So relative to inflation, your value has fallen. It's not quite clear which of those things could occur. We could end up, have a period of stagnation for 8 or 10 years, have some inflation going along, and that would lead to the price decline.